one of these in a year and a half. Someone's gonna pay for this.
After seeing some of the leaks for Scream 7 this weekend, I might need one of those too. And a big man like Patrick Warburton to hold me in his strong arms. We're digging a bit too deep into the 7th installment of Scream Online, and I feel like we're hearing about things that we definitely shouldn't know until the movie releases. Without further ado, let's get into today's rant. Hey everybody, I'm KillJoy Jake, and I'm not mad, I'm just disappointed. I love talking about Scream on this page, as a lot of you might know. It's one of my favorite franchises to discuss due to the infinite possibilities of Ghostface reveals, motives, shocks, and surprises. Whenever Scream news comes out, it just gets the cogs in my brain working to come up with some kind of crazy theory that I like to share with all of you. Sometimes it does frustrate me a little bit to see an early review go out for a highly anticipated new movie from this month get half the views of one of my theories, but the viewers want what the viewers want. I'm always game to talk some Scream 7 updates, even some leaks that don't spoil anything super important. Last week, for instance, we were able to deduce that Scream 7 was being shot at some sort of bar or restaurant based on the initial post from director Kevin Williamson, and some shots from Atlanta locals. There's no harm in talking about these things unless you're someone highly anticipating seeing Ghostface eat pasta for the first time, and ordering a Manhattan kicked in the side with a shot of vermouth. In that case, I apologize for the unprompted spoilers. Now there's some stuff coming out about this upcoming installment that has me scratching my head wondering why any fan would want to know this before the film comes out. Admittedly, today's update comes from a third-party source, Daniel Richtman, but this is the guy who was also reporting on cast members for Scream 7 before they were confirmed. He ended up being right about a lot of them too, like McKenna Grace and Asa German. So now, if what he's reporting is true, it's something I simply did not want to know about this film before I got into it. Before we go any further, I want to give a massive potential spoiler warning. This is something that may or may not actually be happening here in Scream 7. Considering that a lot of other Scream accounts have already talked about this though, most of you probably know what I'm about to get into anyways. I am, however, going to give some fans the luxury of clicking away before I get into it. You have 5 seconds. Delicious. Now let's talk about it. Daniel Richtman reports that there will once again be more than 2 ghost faces in this entry of Scream, just like in the 6th installment. Just to conclude this section of the video before we analyze that a little bit, I hold no animosity in my heart towards people who are talking about this. If you're excited for Scream and you're posting that out there, I get it. I get the excitement, man. I was ready to talk about this when I saw it too. That's really exciting and something to dive into here, especially considering that it's coming from director Kevin Williamson, who has played with ideas like this before in the past. And trust me, we're going to get to this. I also do really appreciate a lot of the Twitter accounts who are putting like spoiler warning before like they post about it. There is a little bit of effort being put in there to not spoil this for everyone, and that I appreciate, but still, there's a lot coming out about this movie that I don't want to know. Point being, watch out for big spoilers coming in the future here. I'm sure more are coming considering that we already know how many killers there are going to be in Scream 7, allegedly. Now, if you are still watching and you haven't clicked away at this point, I might as well analyze this at this point since I've kind of had it spoiled maybe for me. Maybe a hot take, but I guess I don't mind more than 2 killers coming from specifically Kevin Williamson. If it was anyone else, like if Christopher Landon was still directing, I might be hanging my head in shame. The biggest reason for this is it kind of reminds me of the lackluster reveal of Scream 6, easily one of the weakest in the entire franchise. Most folks were upset that the motive was a little too similar to Mrs. Loomis from Scream 2, which trust me, I understand, I concur. The biggest thing that was disappointing to me about it is that it was way too obvious who it was. When they didn't show Quinn getting killed in that one sequence, the first thing that went into my brain was they're pulling a Roman on us. And then in the next scene, Detective Bailey says this:
"You fuck with my family, you die."
So now that it's obvious that he's Ghostface and his daughter didn't die on screen, pretty sure you can deduce at least 2 of the killers from that one sequence, man. I can't even believe I'm saying this, but Ethan was the most mysterious Ghostface of Scream 6, and even then he was pretty sus. It's a shame that the mystery doesn't work in Scream 6 for me because I think everything else is damn near perfect. Had they spent like another couple of weeks polishing up that script, I think it easily is the best sequel. I really didn't like the 3 Ghostfaces being utilized in Scream 6 because it wasn't wasn't necessary. You could have done that story with just a dad and a daughter. Ethan could have just been a really good red herring, man. The reason I'm into more than two Ghostfaces with Kevin Williamson directing is maybe this could be a reimagining of his original Scream 3 idea. During a 2013 interview with Entertainment Tonight discussing his new series at the time, The Following, Kevin Williamson made it known that the series was based on his original script for Scream 3. Kevin didn't write the third entry of Scream for a number of reasons. One, he was busy with his directorial debut teaching Miss Tingle. Scream 7 will be his second directorial feature, interestingly enough, and the studio wanted to tone down the violence for the third entry after recent shootings had been blamed on the two existing Scream films. Kevin Williamson's original idea for Scream 3 was virtually tossed aside and Aaron Kruger just kind of took over from there. That's why it's the silliest entry. Kevin's original plan was to essentially feature a cult of ghost faces. An entire Stab fan club at Woodsboro High would be the big reveal at the end of the film. Now, I've never read these notes, although I really want to, but if I had to guess, the big reason why it was rejected is probably because it was a counter commentary to what had happened in real life. It probably would have delved deeper into the whole does violence in movies affect real life debate that the earlier entries of Scream get into a lot. Billy, Mickey, and even John Milton are the biggest perpetrators of this commentary element. I guess you could technically argue that all of the Scream motives have something to do with violence in movies affecting real life, but there's something about those first two movies especially that just hit that anger right on the head of the nail. It was the late 90s, man. It was a really angry time. Considering that Kevin Williamson developed his initial idea into the TV series The Following and would use the Stab fan club bit for a crucial element to Scream 4, I don't think we'll see this exact idea play out in entry number 7. However, we have yet to see Kevin tackle the idea of a cult of ghost faces in his Scream movies, which would certainly make this one different. Now listen, I read a lot of comments about people who want to see certain things from the Scream universe. Some folks want it to be two killers again. Some folks just want to go back to normal, go back to how those original 3 movies felt. I really think that people are going to be disappointed in this entry if that's the mindset you're currently in. I think with Kevin Williamson directing, a lot of people feel like it's going to go back to the feel and flow of the first 3 movies, but the state of horror is just incredibly different than it was back in the late 90s. You gotta think, in the late 90s, people were exhausted by slashers. They had seen them for like 20 years at this point. They're like, we're done. We're done with slashers, move on to something else. We love Scream because it's making fun of that. We're so familiar with the tropes, it doesn't scare us anymore. That's why, in my opinion, the first 3 Scream movies, they don't necessarily scare me. They're more focused on the commentary of just like kind of poking and prodding at all the slasher movies we've come to be super familiar with, maybe even a little too familiar with. That's why that first movie especially was this cultural revolution. But then, of course, just like all trends in horror, it died, Saw became super popular, and people were like, hey, blood and guts, that's pretty cool. And oddly enough, that is a similar thing that's happening right now in the world of horror, with Terrifier 2 and Terrifier 3 really popularizing over-the-top, brutal, bloody kills. Scream 7 is likely going to feel a lot closer to Screams 5 and 6 in my opinion, even though a lot of people don't want to hear that. If a lot of the rumors we're talking about today end up being true, I could totally see Kevin Williamson trying out the whole cult of Ghostface thing, but maybe through a modern lens. Kevin Williamson didn't come up with the idea of doing a cult of Ghostface back for Scream 3 for no reason. I mean, there was a point to that. I personally could see it being a response to some of those awful real-life things that really did happen. Maybe Kevin, alongside writer Guy Busick, has updated the idea of the cult of Ghostface, made it something a little more modern. These movies have always had a bout of social commentary in them. I would not be surprised if we went down that route. I am really hoping that Scream 7 does not get spoiled before it releases on February 27th of 2026, but that is a little over a year away, so the likelihood of it not getting spoiled is It seems like with each new Scream film, more and more spoilers come out for the films before they even release, which really has me bummed out, I'll tell you what. Let's hope a clip of the killers getting revealed doesn't leak online like it did with the last film. I am still so thankful I didn't have Scream 6 spoiled for me. Before we wrap up today's update video, please make sure to check out my new short film Chicken Man and leave a review on Letterboxd. Someone put it up there. I don't know who, but thank you, whoever did it. I'd love to know what everyone thinks about this one. I'm gonna read as many reviews as I possibly can. It's only 10 minutes of your time and it's over on the Human Egg Productions channel. Give it a watch. Also, please consider subscribing to this page as we are just about to hit 30,000 subscribers. Let's hit that goal before the end of Scream 7's production. Thank you to everyone who supports this channel in any sort of way. How are you guys feeling about Scream 7 and a lot of these continuous leaks? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you all again for watching, and as always, don't forget to kill it out there, y'all.